Welcome to Yeshiva Dav, Shir sponsor Louis Nishmas, I'm Biako Shalom, and Leah Basitzchok. We are holding in Basra Dav Samachtes. We just learned the Mishnah and the Samachtes we based, went through many details. And the Gemara now is going to go through really the details of the Mishnah, one by one, to come and explain these details. As the Rashbam points out, the Rashbam even says an interesting sentence over here. He says that because it was so short, it was like a line by line, there's a little mixed up the K-Meir with Girsais because it was so short. The short version makes it a little more confusing. Says the Gemara, Maya avodim she'en tzorka. If you remember, the Mishnah says someone who sells a field, he sells the stones that are needed for the field. What are you talking about? Says the Gemara, avnei de akfo. Here they say avnei de akfo, which means it's stones you put on the grain, not to let the stones fly in the air. It's arranged for the fence. Meaning not that they are arranged, but they're just piled up. That is duris, arranged. Here we said, going back, it's like Omar Mar. We said that it's the stones that you put on the grain. Now, we're going to learn here something that throws it on us something which, without the Rashbam, you don't understand what he's talking about, because we're referring here to a Gemara L'Kamon. The Gemara is going to say later, going to bring, and a few more black, and that Ein Chesam with base. We're going to learn that Rameir and Rabbanon are arguing regarding, in the case of, as the Rashbam brings, if you send a vineyard, how much is sold with it. And Rameir holds that you sell more. When a person sells, he sells more. He's like almost, for our references, as more b'ayin yofa moicher, selling more. While Rabbanan says he's selling less. So says the Gemara, the Rameir, what's going to be the case? If they are arranged, ready to be used, even though they were not put on the grain yet, it's considered to be stones which are sold with the sadi. The Rabbanon, who the machton, has to be on the field. The Rabbanon are less willing to accept the sale. They say the sale includes a certain amount, but not too much. So, and according to the second sheet, though, they're talking about stones that are arranged for the fence. They're arranged even though they were not put together. Rabbanan, the cedar, we said before, that's already not only put aside, but they're already arranged for the fence, they're just not put in cement yet. Because the Gemara says, you have these reeds in the vineyard that they need for the vineyard. So, what exactly are the konim doing in the vineyard? Talk about split reeds. You put them underneath the vines to keep them standing. Now, going back to what we said before, Rameir was a little more inclusive. The Rameir de Mishafion, if they are Mishufa means that they're already set up, they're smoothed out. If they weren't put there yet, they're just preparing to go there. There are Rabbanon who the mukman that's already put there in the vineyard. Says the Gemara, you have the field connected to the ground. So the Gemara, even though it's already time to harvest it, but because the mice didn't harvest it, it's part of the field. If I have chitas akonim, I have this cluster of reeds that is less than a roiva sold. Even though they're very thick, they still don't stand on their own, they're sold with the field. You have the guarding hut, which is not connected with cement. If it's not connected to the ground, it's still sold with the ground. You have the carob tree, which is not grafted. Which is when the tree is young. Even though they're very thick. Now was the first part of the Mishnah. What is sold with the field? Now we're going to the next part of the Mishnah. What is not sold with the field? Do not sell the stones which are not meant for the field. Similarly, that they're not prepared. Meaning, they're not even prepared for that. He has some stones. He's thinking eventually to come and dig them and make them and cut them in a certain way. No, they're cut already. It's still not included until they're not put on the grain, like we said before. was doers to go there when he put it for the fence. What is the stage which is not included in the sale? It wasn't prepared. The one did not put it one on top of each other. What does that mean? We talk about the vines do need the reeds, but the reeds are not yet ready. They're not there yet. So according to Omer, they're not smooth. We didn't put it there. Not tvua which is cut off the land. Even though it still needs the land, because it's cut off land, even though it's still nurturing for the land, once it's cut off, it's not part of the land. If you have the cluster of reeds, which is the size of a roiva, even though they're very thin. Not all chitzas hakonim is not sold. So they have a small garden of spices, of good smell, and it has its own name. It's considered to be, it has its own title. Ain't not in kerosene. On my papa, gives an example. They called the rose garden of Shmuel. Once you have a shemir which is connected with cement, it's not sold. It's connected to the ground. But once it's made petit, it has this being choshev b'fiatzmo, and it is and it's not included in the sale. Let's give the parentheses. You have the squares that you put where? The Rashbam learns you put it in the doors. Right? You put it on the doors. It's the squares around the doors. It's like having the mezuzah and the mashkei, the doorpost. So that's called milbenois. It's like a square around the door. That's what the Rashbam learns. The Tosfos learns that we're not talking about the entrance to the house. We're talking about the entrance to the shemriya, to the garden hut that we mentioned before. So Shaila is where does this belong to? If it's connected with cement, it's connected. It's not connected with cement, it's connected with, for our purposes, with nails. It's very easy to remove. Bye. Some more take. What about around the windows and around the doors? It's just made for beauty. When it's connected. So the way the Rashbam learns, we talk about if it's not with cement, it is with needles, and the needles do work for doors. What about windows? Do I need it for the windows so much? I don't need it. So what's this take? Sorry. You have the squares that go around the beds. If it's moved with the bed, what? When you sell the bed, you sell the milbonis with it. If you have beds, put the mattress in these squares, but the squares don't move. Are they sold together with the mattress or not? Says the Gemara, take. So all these questions we have a take. Clearly the Gemara says, we have certain trees, they have chashivas, they're important on their own. Is the grafted carob. And Sodin Shikwa is the shikwa, once it gets to a very older age and starts having many branches, becomes choshev, but is not sold with the field. So the one that's some testimony base. How do we know? How do we know what? So says the Rashbam, if you look at the Rashbam on top, right? Now, how do we know it's not part of the sodeh? So says the Gemara, talking about the field of Avraham Avinu. The Sodeh Ephron that is in Machpelah, and let's see the Bach on the side who ends the pasuk. And you have the trees which were in the borders of the Sodeh. What are you dashing? And a field includes all the trees that they need the border of the field, because if not, nobody knows who they belong to. They're not so chashuv, not so important. So I have an apple tree, and it's in the middle of nowhere, it's hefker. It needs the borders of the field in order to give it a shame and be protected. So if you sell the field, the apple trees are included. But carob and sodon, these and the shikmo, different types of trees, so they're chashuv on their own, and they don't need the gvul of sodeh. Says the Gemara, you see, there be another limit. When you sell the field, you sell also the border of the field. It's not only the field itself, it's also the border, because it says that Avraham Avinu purchased not only the field, but he purchased also the Gvul Sofiv. Says the Gemara, someone who sells a field to his friend, you have to write to him, I'm selling to you diklim, vitalim, vehutzim, v'tzitzim. Says the Rashbam, all of these are palm trees, just different stages of growth of palm trees. So the diklim is the big one, the talim the young one, the hutzim, v'tzitzim are small ones. Different stages. You have to sell, all of them have to be in there. Or maybe different types of the kolim. You have to write it. Even if you didn't write it, it's still koine, what you said before. The trees are included in the field. Still, if you want to make the star better, so I want to include in the star the shoyness languages I don't need. Says we're now something interesting. Omer Lane sells the seller to the buyer. I'm selling you the field and the palm trees. What does it mean? Explains the Rashbam. We're not talking about two trees in the field. We already learned. The once you sell the field, you sell whatever's in the field. All the trees which are in the field are included. And the fact that I mentioned two doesn't take it away. Doesn't take it away. You're still including all the trees. So what does it mean that two trees, an additional two trees? He's selling the field, in addition, he's selling two other trees. So the Gemara says like this: if the seller says I'm selling you a field plus two trees, two palm trees, he has to give him two palm trees if he has. If he doesn't have, he has to buy two more palm trees. So again, if he does have trees, you have a tree dikli, give him two trees. Because dikli is loshon rabim, mute rabim, the minimum amount in plural tense is two. If he doesn't have to. Zovin le tree dikli, has to buy him two trees. Mishabdi, and if he has two trees that are mishubah to somebody else, part trade dikli, he needs to go and redeem it. And he is responsible to give this buyer two trees. Now, he said are bedikli. He didn't say are vedikli, are and trees. He says are with his trees. Chazim. He is bedikli yorivlei. If it does have trees, he's selling the trees in the land. Because he's explaining, he's saying, I'm giving you a land that has any trees. So you have to have trees. Aro bedikli, he didn't say aro bedikli with a land of trees. But aro, which is the base dekel, it's the area of trees. So, leisatik, he doesn't get the trees if he doesn't have. The chazir ledikli koameli. He didn't mean to say I actually have the trees. It's a land which is appropriate to grow trees. Says the Gemara, so I'm giving you everything except that specific dekel. Chazina, we see. If it's a good dekel, shiri shari, meaning, so I'll give you everything, but that tree, which is the best tree, I want to keep it to myself. But if he said the worst tree, why is he keeping himself the worst tree? Kol shekana. So kol shekana means others. Okay, so that's just an explanation which tree he's referring to. Lebar miloni. Give it to you except the trees. Isle iloni levar miloni. Right? If he has trees, regular trees or other trees but palm trees. But palm trees. So if he says I'm giving it to you without trees, he's referring to trees, not palm trees. But if the only trees that he owns are palm trees, so he said the trees, it means a palm tree. If he has vines, it's going to take us to gufre. If he has regular trees and vines, so he means the bar milon. Because when you talk about vines and trees, you don't call vines trees, even in English today. You don't call them trees, you call them vines. If you don't have anything else, you call them trees. Iloni v'dikli, levar miloni. Also, same thing by dikli. In Lashon of the Gemara, when they spoke about palm trees, they didn't say iloni, they called it dikli. If he's excluding a tree, and he said tree, I interpreted what he means, tree, meaning regular tree, not palm tree, not vine. Gufri v'dikli, if he has vines and palm tree, levar mi gufri. Because the vines are less of a tree, or more of a tree than the palm tree, or called more of a tree than the palm tree. In other words, if a person says, I'm giving you my field without trees, So if he has regular trees, he's referring to that. If the only trees he has is either palm trees or vines, either or, he's referring to what he has. If he has two of a kind, so you go always with what is more normal to call trees. So regular trees are called more trees than vines and palm trees. Vines are called trees more than palm trees. So that's why always you say he meant that one. Says the Gemara, Omar Rav, when I'm talking about a tree, what is a tree? What is the definition of a tree? Only something you need to use a rope to go up. If it's very high, you need a rope. If it's very low, that's not a tree. Havishir. You don't need a rope to go up. It's not included in when he said except trees. Says the Gemara in Daf Ayin Amud Aleph. Whatever is so soft that when you take the yoke with the plower and you go through the tree bends down. So like it's a soft tree. So that's not a tree. If you can't go through it, it's too hard. Havashir, that's called a tree. Meaning, what Rav says it has to do with the height. That's what we talk about a deck. If he said, I'm giving you everything but palm trees, he means palm trees that are very high, very tall. Palm trees are very little or included with the field. When he's selling other trees, so he means thick trees, hard trees, you can't just bend them down. But trees that you can bend down, like the banana tree, for example, that is included in the sale of the field. The Sergom. So we'll stop. This is the end of this daf.